life, it's the key. No more starving, getting rid of inflammation. Choosing healthy choices, providing you with sound information. Bringing balance to hormones and insulin through food. With BFL, teaching you food choices to see you through. BFL, we're teaching you to eat food right. Teaching you to pair food with each bite. Balancing our body's microbiome, feeling so right. With diet-free life, the health futures lose pride.
Woo, woo, woo. What's up, everybody? This is Roberto Lorenzo Ferguson, yours truly. That's Robert Ferguson. Okay. So this is Diet-Free Life with Robert Ferguson. I'm your nutritionist, a guy who shares because he cares, and today is no different. Now, I don't have an agenda today. However, I had quite a few coach calls with some of my clients this morning, and I had the opportunity to converse with a couple of businesses this morning with the goal of helping them get their employees healthier. And that means that was a lot of talking. So I literally was on the phone at 5 a.m. and just maybe about an hour ago, I got off the phone. So I literally went from one meeting to the next meeting, to the next meeting, to the next meeting, to the next meeting. And today was one of those days where I was like, oh my goodness. Everybody's talking about the same thing. So I was compelled to just have a conversation with you. So anyone who's catching me live, and even in the replay, I'll come back to you. But I want to say thank you for being here. And if you have questions, maybe I have an answer. What I can tell you is that if I don't have the answer, I will say I don't have the answer. And that's one thing that I learned today, was that a lot of people feel like they need to always have the answer. So I would encourage you to just be honest with people. If you don't know, you don't know. And then when I was looking at how the day was unfolding, I got a couple of calls from some people that were complaining about the exact same thing and how it's negatively impacting their health. And it just so happens that these two people who don't know each other had a question for me about peptides. And they were like, well, I'm taking these peptides and this happened to me and this is wrong. And I'm like, and I'm starting to, then I actually there's a third person. I'm on a call, I meet someone, and they're like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to meet with a hormonal specialist today about hormones. And she wants me to look at these peptides. Now, remember, I open up by saying, if you don't know, just say you don't know. Now, peptides is like this word being thrown around in the supplement world as though peptides are new. And they're not. So the basic lesson, right, to understand what a peptide is to first understand what amino acids are. So you've heard of amino acids because that's usually associated with protein powder. Make sure you get your aminos. And amino acids are the building blocks for protein. And we live in a protein-centric country here in the United States, and I would also include Canada, because everybody's talking about protein. Make sure you get enough protein. If you tell someone you're a vegetarian or a vegan, one of the first things that come out, make sure you get enough protein. Do you think you can be a vegan and not get enough protein? Or I mean, what are you going to do about that? And then you go to the grocery store and cereal boxes have protein, on the box as part of the marketing. Higher in protein, 10 grams of protein in a loaf of bread. And we don't need all that protein. So we overdo it with the protein, but no one ever asked that question. So the protein powders, right, are made up of amino acids. It's like you'll hear whey protein. So amino acids, I want you to think of as words. Okay. And we have 20 essential amino acids, meaning, well, not 20 essential. There's 20 primary essential, not essential, 20 primary amino acids that are used for a combination of a whole bunch of things. But we have 8 to 9. It depends if you're a kid or an adult. So I could say 8 and it would be okay. I could explain that, or 9. But you have a certain amount of essential amino acids. So let's say 9. And they're essential, meaning if you don't consume them, then you're not getting them and it can cause some problems. There's one condition called beriberi that can show up, usually when people aren't getting an adequate amount of amino acids. Well, we don't see that problem here in the United States. Maybe in Africa, you'll see people with it. But think of amino acids as the building blocks of protein. And you're going to look at them as the building blocks of a lot of things, but amino acids. So think of amino acids as words. Then I want you to think of peptides as not words, but sentences. So the amino acids are words, and then you have sentences, right? Or we could reverse that and go letters. Actually, I like letters. So think of amino acids as letters. And let's think of peptides as words. So peptides are made up of amino acids. So right now you're thinking, okay, so peptides, there's nothing really new. No. It's just you have small chains of amino acids that come together to make up a word. Or it could be a sentence if we are saying that amino acids is a word. And then think of proteins. I guess you could say proteins. Yeah. As novels, like the book. So it's nothing new, right? So a very common peptide is insulin. Now, GLP-1s that you hear about with Wegovy and Ozempic, those are peptides, and I don't want to get you confused, but they're also hormones. And hormones and peptides are two different things, but the reason why a GLP-1 is both is because where it's created naturally, which is inside of your gastrointestinal tract. Now, if we keep talking, and let's say you keep nodding, or if I do a decent job at explaining, I'll start connecting the dots for you, right? But a lot of people will just nod as though they know what you're saying, and they really don't. So what happened this morning with these two people, they were taking these peptides that someone sold them, and they had to inject these peptides. And they were telling them how it's going to help them lose weight. It's going to make everything work better. They're going to become healthier on a cellular level. And I'm like, well, what made you buy it? It wasn't their knowledge of understanding what a peptide was. It was the excitement of the person who was sharing it with them that got them excited on a promise on what it's going to do. Look better, feel better, less pain. And that's marketing. And everybody's going to do that to a certain extent. But at one point, you want to have some discernment, if that's the right word, critical thinking. You want to ask questions to where you can get clarity. And if you can get clarity, you may find yourself in a situation where it makes so much sense that you're like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to buy that. But if it's clarity, real clarity, I believe you're going to ask more questions. Now, tell me if I'm wrong. I believe when you have clarity, you're going to ask more questions. I'm doing really good with my water, by the way. I'm doing really good with my water. So I'm going to give you an example of what I mean by that. Okay, so let me show you. Let me show you. I'm going to add to the stage here. Okay. Now, we're currently doing this program called a 30-day gut health program. And what I'm doing is I'm teaching people in this program the importance of dietary fiber. And the fact that 90% of everybody in the United States is not getting enough dietary fiber. Now, you're going to get dietary fiber from grains, right? Vegetables, fruits. And we live in a world in this country where a lot of people are avoiding potatoes and they're not eating a lot of grains. So they're not getting as much fiber. And then we have a lot of people that eat a lot of ultra processed foods. And when you're eating a lot of ultra processed foods, then they're devoid of dietary fiber, right? Just go look at a box of cereal or go in your kitchen. Okay. Grab the box of cereal. If you have a box of cereal, look at the serving size under the nutrition facts and scroll down and tell me how much protein is in that cereal. Then how many grams of dietary fiber is in that cereal? And then if you start thinking about what you eat throughout the day, you can see that most people are not getting, they're not even getting 15 grams of dietary fiber. And in biblical days, people were consuming somewhere between 70 and 100, 120 grams of dietary fiber every day. And we're not even getting 15. When you look at hunter-gatherers, as you can see on my screen here, they're getting 100, 150 grams of dietary fiber a day. They have a strong gut microbiome. They are like, their immune system is amazing. They are the epitome of health. And then if you look at the top, what I have is, I looked at their primary causes of death. Nowhere do you see these hunter-gatherers dying because of heart disease. There's no obesity. There's no type 2 diabetes. Rare, if ever, do you see someone get cancer. So there's a very strong association, correlation between not getting enough dietary fiber and increased risk of all the diseases that we're used to in the United States and Canada. I mean, the hunter-gatherers, they're dying because of infectious diseases and parasites, unclean water, being born, right? They don't have the hospitals and they don't have the clean environments that we have in the United States. So they die from those things. They get eaten by a lion. Here in the United States, we're dying of all the things that there's direct association of not having enough dietary fiber. And when you increase your fiber, certain amazing things happen. Your gut gets healthier. Your skin clears up. You reduce your risk of heart disease. You reduce the risk of inflammation getting worse. So what can we do to get more fiber? So to me, that's how I like to teach, and that's how I like to work with my clients. I want them to be informed and then put them in a position where they can win. Case in point, I have clients that I used to coach, and then I watch them on social media, which is great. And I realized that I was either a horrible coach teacher or they were just a really horrible student client, because it's almost like they don't know anything. Like, I watched a lady on Facebook this morning who I used to coach, spend a lot of time with her. Now, she's got a whole bunch of other problems in her personal life that's blocking her from really losing weight and being healthy. And that's a whole nother conversation. But she was talking about how she could take a supplement and it would curb her appetite. And I'm like, that is not what you want to do, especially as you mature in life. Okay, fast forward. Do you know anyone who's ever had cancer and then you watched them die? Do you know anyone who got sick and they eventually, like, you watched them die? You were around when they died. You ever notice that they don't have an appetite? So if you're going to do something that's going to curb your appetite, then it definitely is not helping you positively nurture your metabolism. Because one of the first things that happens when I'm coaching someone for the last 30 years is you can see that their metabolism revs up. And this is just my experience. I don't have a study to prove this, but it is 30 years of experience. Once they start eating the way we teach people how to eat, they're hungry. They now have an appetite. And as long as they're having an appetite, that's a good sign. Because I've had people die, people in the hospital, and one of the first things that I'll ask is like, do they have an appetite? And they go, oh yeah, he has an appetite. That's a good sign. It's kind of like someone who has kidney failure, and you say, well, is he still urinating? Can he still like go do number one on his own or her own? Oh yeah, that's a good sign. I've seen people start dialysis, but because they can still urinate, eventually wean off of dialysis and get things back in order. See, where I'm going with all of this is that you can do a lot of things on your own when it comes to losing weight and better health and all that. But you want to put yourself in a position where you can have clarity. You don't want to be getting on drugs. You don't want to be taking some supplement because of someone's excitement and the promise that they're throwing out there without it being substantiated. And just because they can speak words that you're not familiar with does not mean it's legit. Just because you see them on TV doesn't mean it's legit. Just because they can talk louder than you doesn't mean it's legit. I know a whole bunch of people that are legit in the eyes of people that don't know better. And part of why they don't do many things with me or they get quiet around me is because I'm going to check them on what they don't know. So for those people, they would rather just say, like I had I would call a dear friend. She was had messaged me about and asked me a question about this supplement called Fatty 15 and was all excited about it. And I responded, I said, yeah, it's a good product. I said, actually, I met the owners. Matter of fact, I interviewed them over a year ago. It was a really good interview. And I think the world of the husband and wife. Great. However, I am a little saddened because the way they're marketing, which is probably not them, is that they're saying that Fatty 15 could replace omega-3s. And that's misinformation. That's a downright lie. And if we were side by side, we could pull up 40, 50,000 papers to prove that that is not true. It's not. And when it comes to like the health of a cell membrane, it's not C15, which is a saturated fat in Fatty 15, that's going to make that membrane healthy. You better get some omega-3 in that membrane. And the only product that I'm aware of that 100% based on a scientifically validated test again and again and again and again that gets that cell membrane to be healthy, it's called Balance Oil. It is what it is. No one can debate that. Like no one, because there's a test. So you would have to debate the test from the world's leading laboratory that everyone from Harvard to the Mayo Clinic, the Cleveland Clinic, Tufts University, National Institute of Health World Health Organization. So the number one place where everyone lifts up and says, this is the test, you would have to disprove that that test is legit. But because the test is legit, no one can debate it. That's what I like. See, before test-based nutrition, you just have people debating, arguing. Well, I know what it did for me. I know what it did for me. I know what it did with my friend. I know. Debates. Let's change all of that. And when you're talking to these people who are just pushing these products, it's mind-blowing how gullible people are. And there's a part of me that's like, yep, they're gullible and it's pretty sad, but I almost want to use the word stupid. But then I don't want to call them stupid because they just don't know any better. And it's like when I was having the conversation today with this company, they asked me, based on trials that we've done in the past, what's our secret to getting people engaged and keeping them on it for a long period of time and seeing it through? And I said, in the words of Richard Simmons, reinforcing hope, getting people to believe that there is a way that they could be successful with losing weight, becoming healthier, without having or living with feelings of restriction and deprivation. Because everyone is selling what's in front, right? They're selling a lie. Because when you sell hope, you're not asking a person to come over to you. You're actually meeting them where they are. And most people aren't doing that. So if someone listens to me long enough and they give me a chance to show them what we're doing, what we're made of, and what 30 years of experience in the same lane means, then you got something special. And we have something special. Right? So when I see these people that get on the GLP-1 drugs, some of it is part of this ignorance, lack of humility, gullible, influenced by the doctor because they just believe what the doctor tells them. Maybe they get influenced by a celebrity that they see that's using the drug, or they lost weight. And people just, we're at a place where we don't want to think for ourselves anymore, right? We don't want to, we need everybody else to tell us it's okay to do that. Like I see that in business all the time. Like I'm in business where I don't need to call anybody to make a decision. If I call someone, I'm asking for their expert advice. I'm not asking them for their decision. Then it parlays to me, and then I go with their decision. I like to get information from people, and then I use my own ability to like think it through. But we're losing that. And I'm seeing that with people in business. It's like, it's amazing. Because if I come to you and I share with you that I can show you how to eat 3 meals a day, balanced meals of the foods that you like to eat, and I tell you that you're going to lose weight if that's your goal, and then you start asking questions and I'm going to have answers, then you're going to want to know how many people have done it, and you're going to see that. Now it gets to a point where you got to go, I don't really see any negatives to this. It does sound too good to be true. But because of all the things you've shared with me, I'm not putting my health in harm's way. You know what? I'm willing to give it a try. And if they give it a try, they will then discover, because they thought it through, right? Pros and cons. Where's the concern at? Why not learn how to eat? Think of all the parents, right? So, okay, every parent who's watching this, think about this. And this is not a dig on you, but just think about this. When your kid was born and you raised your child, and now some of you have kids who are adults, you never taught them how to eat. You didn't. Because if you did, you would say, I did teach them. And then I would ask you, well, what did you teach them? Right? Like, well, I taught them, and then everything kind of comes to a halt. Because no one taught us. Now, we ate and we taught without really being taught. And then over the years, as you mature, you learn certain things and you play with it, but no one taught you how to eat. If they did, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. And then what they taught you was legit, again, we wouldn't be in the same situation. We would be in a better situation. So I'm doing a presentation tonight. And if you want to go to it live, you can email me and just reach out to me and I'll send you the link. It's going to be at 5 p.m. Pacific, if you catch this in time. Today's date is a Thursday, the 21st of August. So if you're watching a replay, it already happened. If you're watching a replay on the 22nd, okay? But if you want it, but you can still email me and I'll send you a link back and tell you when our next live is. Because we're going to be addressing this issue right here. See all those things on the screen? Okay. See that? See that? I'm doing. See that? And then let's go back. See that? Okay. Okay. Who do you know that has gout or lupus? Skin challenges. Anyone you know with neuropathy? Are they having a hard time walking around? What about type 2 diabetes? I mean, there's almost 40 million Americans right now living with type 2 diabetes, like living with it. Okay, that's a lot of people. And there's over 80 million that are pre-diabetic, almost 100 million. And 80% of them don't even know that they're pre-diabetic. That's one of the 26 things I have on the screen. And I will share with people something that 100% can help them. So, any questions for me? Because, again, I just jumped on. I just wanted to have a conversation. I just wanted to share with you some things, some ideas that can help you out. Actually, I'm going to show you one more thing. And this is fascinating. I'm going to share this in my presentation tonight. So, when you look up here in this chart, it says why fiber and prebiotics matter for your health. Okay. Now, most people, for instance, and I'm not being a know-it-all, I'm just telling you the truth, can't tell you why you want to make sure you get enough dietary fiber. They can't. And they can't even tell you what's the difference between dietary fiber and a prebiotic. And I did not say probiotic. Okay. That right there will help you understand why over 90% of people in the United States, adults and kids, are not getting enough dietary fiber. Just because they don't even know what it is. Now, most are going to say we have two types of fiber, soluble and insoluble. If they know that. So think about yourself. Think about all the people you know, they don't even know the difference between those two. And then when you look at when you don't get enough fiber, what happens? Inflammation in the body, constipation, increased risk for heart disease, increased risk for weight gain, blood sugar levels all over the place. And then go back to that list of 26 and think of all the people. Then they have no clue. Right? And my goal is to be sharing with you so you have a clue. So watch this. If you look at the chart right here to the green one, let me see if I can make that a little bigger. Yep, I'm blocking it. Well, you can see like where I am on the screen. Okay, see how tall the green is? That's dietary fiber being consumed by hunter-gatherers. People out that live on the land. They're eating close to nature. And then when you look right next to me, let me bring it back up. Where you see the red, that's where most people are at in the United States and Canada. And then the blue is the recommendation from the government. So we're not getting in what they recommend. And it gets worse. So you go over here to the far right, we're now looking at gut health. And more people are talking about gut health. Okay, the real tall orange, yellow, and purple, okay, that's the hunter-gatherers. You go to the right of that, that's us. You go to the far right, that's the recommendations. And they're talking about the health of the gut and how many prebiotics we're getting in based on what they call short-chain fatty acids, which help with strengthening the lining of the gut. So as all these people are promoting keto and promoting all these diets that are crazy, devoid of dietary fiber, they're not getting enough short-chain fatty acids. And if they're not getting enough short-chain fatty acids, then they lack diversity in the gut. And it's just a matter of time before they run into other problems. Now, could they lose weight eating just meat and fat? Absolutely. Do they increase the risk of a whole bunch of health problems related to an unbalanced gut? Absolutely. Could they debate me on it? Absolutely not. Because if we were debating or we had a trial, I would simply say, can you please bring 3 licensed gastroenterologists to support your case of promoting keto and carnivore? I can't find any gastroenterologists that are actively working because they look at the colon on a regular basis. Now, there's a whole bunch of physicians, but they're not gastroenterologists. I can't find any gastroenterologists that are willing to support an all meat and fat way of eating. Now, if you do, let me know. Okay. So I'm about to close up. I just wanted to take a moment. I feel like I'm venting. And I'm venting because it feels good. And I hope that one day I'll catch that person who is getting comfortable not being informed and lying to people that they sell stuff to. Yes, you heard me. See, what happens is when you're making money, like you have network marketers, right? And they get with a company and they pay money to get with this company. And now they're a network marketer. I don't have a problem with that because I'm a network marketer. I'm part of a company that I 1000% believe in, but I could debate and I'm open to debating anybody over it. Those other people aren't, because I've asked a whole bunch of companies. I asked the people at Altavia. They said yes at first. Then they were like, no, we're good. I've asked people at a few other companies. I'm not going to mention the name. Some of them are selling peptides. Nope. They won't do it. Why wouldn't they do it? I would do it. I would love to do it. Let's go. It would be an easy win. And that's not being cocky. That's knowing what I know to be true. And the people who are selling some of these peptides, they are 100% lying to people. But the people are so uninformed, they don't know that they're lying, because they come across like it makes sense. But I guarantee you this, they don't have a test. And that's where I settle. Like the company that I got with, when I saw the test, that was it. And I looked at the lab that did the test, third party. To me, that was it. What else is there to talk about? And then you look at, is this something that is vanity, or is this something that is important, like critical? And I'm going to say essential because it is. Is it backed by science? Yes. It's backed by what they call settled science. Settled science is like Newton's law, right? So I have my cup of water, and Newton's law says that if I let go of this cup, the cup is going to fall down. It's going to go straight down. It ain't going to go up. That's settled science. Where I'm at in the United States of America, I'm not in any chamber or anything. If I let go of this cup, it's going to drop down. That's settled science. There's no more debate. What we talk about and what I'm encouraging and why I'm part of this company is because the importance of what we're providing is settled. So every person that I meet that says, hey, I have a supplement. Let's say, I'll end on this, but here's a good point. Let's say this is a peptide, and I'm going to sell it to you because it can help your shoulder. It can help your energy. It can help your cravings, whatever I'm promising. And I'll say, okay, so how does it do that? Eventually, you're going to talk about cellular health. Not always, but a big part of it. No matter what's going on, everybody wants to have healthy cells. Now, did you know that these cells have a membrane on them? And the membrane, depending on how healthy the membrane is, that dictates if the right nutrients, maybe the products, the peptides you're taking, can get into the cell and work its magic. Not always, but a good amount of time, right? Because you can build a good amount of muscle and have poor cell membrane fluidity. There's a whole bunch of bodybuilders that got really good muscles, and their cells they're absorbing things in a good way. Now, I also know, based on biology and science, that certain things don't need to be present to get the cells and the signaling to work properly, like it would for someone who didn't work out. Because the activity itself, and I know I have some of my coaches listening to this, and I'm keeping it really simple. And you guys can ask me when I talk to you, right? The activity of lifting weights and exercising can get the cell to respond without the hormones signaling to get the cells to respond. So exercise is like a workaround for people who have poor cellular health. Ooh, and that was good. And I can break that down. I'm not in this conversation, but that's a good one. I'm going to write a paper on it because I know exactly what this paper is going to look like. And I'm going to explain to people why someone could look really good on the outside and be, because they're working out. But on a cellular level, they're not doing well. And the only thing that's really protecting them is the fact that they do work out. But that doesn't mean that their cells are healthy because we have a way of testing it. But they're able to build the muscle, right? To get the amino acids into the muscle, right? What they call protein synthesis to build that muscle. So that means the cells are responding. Insulin's doing its job because they're working out. So when it comes to working out, they're able to create that illusion, if you will. But other things aren't doing so well. Man, this is going to be good. All right, I got some good ideas. Out of it. I talked myself right into an idea for a really cool article. Okay. Now I'm going to end on one more thing. Because we're talking about supplements. We end up going there. So let me show you this study. I love this study right here. It's a double-blind, placebo-controlled, randomized trial. It's called the DO-Health study. And it was all about wanting to find out what could the average person do to reduce their risk of getting any type of cancer. What could we do to reduce the risk of getting any type of cancer? And the good news is not like, okay, you got to run 5 miles a day. You have to like eat broccoli 4 times a week. Think about it. They literally were looking later, what are 3 things that everybody can do for those of us who are concerned or want to do what we can do and don't want cancer. Some people don't care until they get it, right? Which I would say is most people. Like most people aren't thinking about cancer. They don't want cancer, but they don't go to bed like, oh man, what can I do to like, they're not even asking that question, because if they ask that question, they would know about this study. But they're not asking that question. Most people are doing things like certain supplements, listening to that friend that influence you, that talks louder than you, trusting that they're going to give you the right advice. And then you're doing things, taking things that's actually setting you up for cancer. Oh, that's messed up. So why aren't your friends or that fitness instructor or that health person, why aren't they telling you about this study that is very clear? There's 3 things we can all do to reduce the risk of cancer by 61%. I love that idea, especially when you're watching more and more people get cancer. So what are the 3 things? And we'll close it up. 1, exercise. And I'm going to lean heavy on resistance training, but all forms of exercise, right, is helping you. That's 1. Be consistent. Not like you have to become a bodybuilder, but you want to exercise. Go for a walk, get on the treadmill, play with some weights, sit in a chair, stand up, and just stay active, right? Then make sure you're not deficient in vitamin D3. And when you look at the data, right, according to the CDC, if it's accurate, let's just say that, over 80% of Black folks do not have adequate amounts of vitamin D3. Now, what's really interesting on that, and I'm not going to give you the answer, but I would be willing to push and assume that based on ethnicity, Black folks are more likely getting cancer compared to other ethnic groups. I could be wrong. I'm totally guessing. I didn't look it up, but I'm gonna assume there's a higher prevalence of Black folks getting cancer compared to other ethnicities in the United States. Just so happens, like I demonstrated with the colon stuff, right? And the fiber, right? And if your catching came in here late, you got to rewind and watch earlier when I was talking about dietary fiber, how it's associated with certain people getting this, getting that, better health, less health. But I'm willing to bet that. And then right around that, I'm going to say over 70% of Hispanics get cancer because they're usually deficient when it comes to vitamin D3 also. Now, we can fix that because you can do a test. I can even test. I have a test I can give you to find out if you have an adequate amount of vitamin D. And then the third thing is to make sure you have an adequate amount of omega-3s. Not just taking omega-3s, because not all of them work. And we can do a test to help you realize or discover if you have an adequate amount of omega-3. So again, we could have talked about a lot of things. I'm sure sometimes I don't see the questions coming in on Facebook, and then I go back and I'll have like 20 questions. So I apologize if during the live I didn't get a chance to answer your questions. However, we do a live tonight. You're invited. Email me. My email is robert@dietfreelife.com. If you're catching this live, you can see I have my email under the description, and I will email you back the link. And I look forward to having you there. I don't even know what the topic is going to be about, but it's always about something that can help you. And sometimes we talk about how we're growing our team, and we may invite you to be part of our team because we are in the midst of a movement to get everybody informed. And it's happening. I'm seeing it every day. All right. So let me see. Is there anything else I want to share before I say goodbye? It's so hard. Let me add this to the stage. And so here's an example of what I taught in our course this morning. You get enough fiber plus prebiotics, so it will help to know what a prebiotic is. Now, if you're eating a variety of dietary fiber, you're getting prebiotics. That equals health. What happens? You eat the fiber, fruits, bananas, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, right? Grains. And in there, you're going to get some prebiotics. Now, unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, most people in the United States aren't even getting 15 grams. The recommendation from the United States is somewhere between 35 or 25 and 38 grams. Biblical days, they were consuming 70, 100 grams. The people who have the healthiest microbiome, gut health, immunity, the hunter-gatherers, they're getting 100 to 150 grams. If you ate 150 grams right now, you would be sitting over all bloated. You can't just go from 0 to 100. You got to gradually build up. So we were showing that. And then once you have a healthy gut, you create more SCFAs, which is short chain fatty acids. That helps with this thing called leaky gut that you're starting to hear more and more about. So it helps to tighten up the inside of the gut, puts you in a much better place where you can optimize overall health. We're talking mental health, clarity, brain fog, inflammation, and the list goes on and on and on. All right, I'm Robert Ferguson. If you want to learn more about me, I provided some information. You can also go to dietfreelife.com. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share information with you. I hope it was helpful, and I look forward to my return, which when I return is going to be on and popping. Until the next time, peace.
No more counting calories, just living free. Robert Ferguson's got the plan you need. With diet-free life, it's the key. No more starving, getting rid of inflammation. Choosing healthy choices, providing you with sound information. Bringing balance to hormones and insulin through food. With DFL, teaching you food choices to see it through. DFL, we're teaching you to eat food right. Teaching you to pair food with each bite. Balancing our body's microbiome, feeling so right. With diet-free life, it helps